Hello and welcome to the Road to the Garden podcast. I am Matt St. Jean here with Tommy Godin, and oh boy, Tommy, Big East got chaotic in a hurry.
Yeah, chaotic is a great word for it. This Big East tournament in Madison Square Garden coming up here in a couple months is going to be absolutely electric. Grab your tickets if you don't have them already. SeatGeek, use SeatGeek to get the
Mhm.
tickets. Little shameless plug there. But yeah, this is the most wide open the Big East has been in a while, and it's going to be a fun episode.
Yeah, perfectly segueing us into that ad read. Thank you, Tommy.
Gotcha.
Just a reminder, we've teamed up with SeatGeek this season to get you the best deals for tickets to your favorite teams. SeatGeek takes the confusion out of buying tickets, and they're here to give you some great deals. Get in on the fun, head over to SeatGeek, download their app, and use code NCAA Hoops Digest for $20 off your first purchase. Yes, you can use that on the Big East tournament. If you're looking for tickets, go do that now. We got less than 2 months here. It's creeping up. It's going to be here before you know it. So jump on that. Also, a reminder: this podcast is presented by House Enterprise in partnership with House of College Hoops. Head over to our site house-enterprise.com for more info. We kind of got two lead stories last night in the Big East. Wednesday night, two ranked teams go on the road and lose. That's UConn doing it at Seton Hall. Xavier does it at DePaul. Both of these were absolutely shocking. I was just sitting there. Seton Hall pulled off that comeback in the second half, which I couldn't believe. And then DePaul has been kind of on a little bit of a roll here recently. DePaul's been playing good basketball for a couple weeks now, and we should be noticing that. And which one do you want to start with of these two?
I'll start with the one that the one I was more surprised with, I should say, the one I wasn't more high on, and that's Seton Hall. Now, I know that UConn is in a little bit of a rut, and anytime you play at the Rock, Prudential Center, it's going to be a tough game. But I mean, all year I've said, if our loyal listeners will know, I've said that Shaheen Holloway is a good coach. He's going to figure things out. It's just not going to be in year one. And Shaheen Holloway is just giving me the double bird on the way down, taking UConn down. What a win. I did not think that Seton Hall was capable of this, at least this early. Just shut me right up. So hats off to Seton Hall. That's a heck of a win.
Yeah. Well, let's look at it. So we go back a couple weeks. Seton Hall they lost the game at Marquette. They blitzed St. John's, then went back out, lost a game at Creighton. At that point, they had fallen to 67 in KenPom. Their net ranking really was fine at that point. In the 70s a couple of weeks ago. It got as low as 90 on January 4th when it comes to recent stuff here the last couple of weeks. Now they got a winning streak. This is 4 wins in a row. Butler, Georgetown, DePaul. They escaped DePaul with a victory, which is we're going to talk about later, is harder to do than you may think this season. They avoid Georgetown roulette. They crushed Butler, and then you get the big win that you needed. You look at the resume for Seton Hall right now. It's 3-4 in quadrant 1, and the only bad loss it's a bad one. It's to Siena on a neutral floor. That's quadrant 3, but we're in a position here where if Seton Hall keeps playing like this and is able to get a couple more quadrant 1 wins, they got a real chance at an at-large bid.
Yeah, 3 quad 1 wins, and a couple of them came in the non-conference, if I remember right. They were coming in the non-conference with they were top 3 or top 4 in the conference and in quad 1 wins coming into the conference schedule. I mean, yeah, I absolutely think Seton Hall has a shot for an at-large bid, which is something I didn't think I'd be saying at this point. But KC Ndefo, I mean, I want to give him his flowers right now. He played 28 minutes of incredibly efficient. He was 6 from 8 from the field, 14 points, 8 rebounds. He is outstanding, and the most outstanding part doesn't show up in the box score, at least not the non-analytical box score. It's his defense. That's what KC Ndefo does, and he showed why he is one of, I think, at least in consideration for the Defensive Player of the Year.
Oh, absolutely. He was fantastic. He was a huge part of the fact they were able to pull off that comeback. I mean, I think that's one of the things that stands out to me here. UConn is a very good defensive team, and Seton Hall has struggled in the half court on offense, and it played out exactly like you would expect for the majority of the first 30 minutes of this game. and then they were able to just make stuff work. Down 17 with 3 minutes left in the first half. Then they beat UConn 23-13 there in the third quarter, 18-13 in the fourth quarter to pull this off. And yeah, Casey Ndefo gets the final say there with the putback. A real nice play from him, heads up play. And I liked the set that they got into. They got an open look. They missed it, but you get quality looks, you get bounces your way, and you win ball games.
Yeah, that was a James Breeden game. So shout out Michael DeRosa. I know you're listening. That is his favorite referee. But yeah, I think I saw something on Twitter that Seton Hall only led for 6 seconds of that entire game, or 8 seconds or something like that.
Yeah,
and that's all they needed.
Which that's you know who should be feeling very lucky that Casey Ndefo got that rebound is Alamir Dawes, because they go up with, I think it was a little over a minute left or a little under a minute left. And then right before UConn calls a timeout, Alamir Dawes fouls, sends UConn to the line, and the Huskies go right back up. I had just not a heads up play from him. So yeah, he got absolutely bailed out there.
Yeah, and Shaheen Holloway would let him know about that as well after the game.
And I'm sure he's hearing about it anyway, even with the
win. Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. Go ahead. I was going to also mention Kadary Richmond. 18 points for him. 8 of 10 from the free throw line. He had a double-double. He had 10 rebounds, all defensive. He's become the guy Seton Hall thought he would be this season. And even some of the losses, look at the loss to Providence at home in a close game. That's one where Kadary Richmond was nearly unstoppable for most of it. The Friars had no answer for him. He's turned up his game from what we saw in the non-conference. And I think that's a huge reason why Seton Hall is now back above 500 here in Big East play.
Yeah. Yeah, and this was all without Dan Hurley and Kamani Young for UConn. So I guess a little bit of it is to be, I don't want to say excused, but understood, I think, is a better word. I mean, they lost to Marquette, they lost to St. John's, now they lost to Seton Hall. They beat Creighton, but they lost to Providence. So that's 4 of their last 5, I think, that they lost. So it's definitely a skid that UConn's on. We know that they have the talent to be that team. I mean, 2-3 weeks ago, we were talking about who's going to come in second place in the Big East. And now that door has just been blown wide open. So I still think UConn can be that team. There are some things that aren't going their way right now, but man, I talked about it in the open, but this Big East tournament, oh my goodness, get your popcorn ready. It's going to be a good one.
And this is now 3 losses in a row for UConn, and some of the loss, like losing at Xavier, at Providence, at Marquette, I don't really care. You lose those games and it doesn't impact much for me because those are good teams you're losing on the road in the Big East. That's fine. It's the last 2 for UConn that are very concerning. You lose at home to St. John's. That was the first road win for St. John's all season. They did it at UConn. That's what you give up. And you go on the road here against Seton Hall, and it's kind of this is a desperate moment for the team. You've been losing. You're without your head coach. They have COVID there, which I think illness is playing a bigger part in this season right now than we thought it would. But they're without their head coach. That's where you need your players to step up and show up. And they just did not. It's the same story here. Game in and game out for UConn. And these last 2 games, that's 17 turnovers at Seton Hall and 20 against St. John's. It's ball handling. The guards are just not very good.
Yeah. Yeah, I like what you said there, that you just needed someone to step up. Going through the box score, I'm looking at it. Sanogo 16, Hawkins 13, Newton 11, Caravan 9, Jackson 5. Like, you get it. Jackson 5. That's funny. I just but yeah, I mean, everyone was perfectly mid this game, and that's just something you can't do when you're missing your play caller.
Exactly. And Newton gave you 4 assists in this one with 3 turnovers. Andre Jackson gave you 4 assists with 3 turnovers. Adama Sanogo had no assists and 3 turnovers. Caravan had 2 turnovers in there. Donovan Clingan also had 3 turnovers. So both of your centers go 0 assists, 3 turnovers. You're not expecting them to get a lot of assists, but they're getting hacked in the paint. They're losing the ball down there. And I was just rough. And I'll say we came into this year with Adama Sanogo as the presumed Big East Player of the Year. I'm not even sure if he's in the top 3 now from what we've seen here in the last couple weeks.
Yeah, he's flirting with 3 right now. I got Bryce Hopkins and Sule Boom firmly ahead of him, but you're right. He's definitely on that line.
Yeah, and you got Joel Soriano, who has to be at least somewhat in the conversation with the stats he's put up, and
double machine.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Providence Marquette game here in a minute, but with what Tyler Kolek did last night, I think he absolutely has to start being in this conversation. And really, like half of this Marquette lineup, the whole lineup is fantastic. That starting 5 is ridiculous.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's he. And I don't know how much of it's Snogo and how much of it's the guys around him, but there's no space in this offense right now. People aren't hitting threes. Things are very difficult on the point guards. Nobody can create their own shot, and that means everything gets bogged down. And they're sending every opponent to the line way too much.
Yeah, definitely some big holes in this UConn team, and I know Hurley can fix them, but they got to stop the bleeding until then.
Yeah. Schedule coming up for UConn. They get Butler at home on Sunday. They boat raced Butler back in December, and that was at Hinkle. This should be a tune-up game for UConn. Again, we'll talk about that at the end of the show when we look forward. But they get Xavier next Wednesday, so there's not a lot of time to rest here, and that's a home game. They already lost at Xavier. They can't afford to get swept in that. I mean, that's just you can't have that. If they get swept in that, this team is basically out of the first place race, Big East regular season championship race, in my opinion.
Yeah. You're talking about that being a tune-up game. It's the Junior Husky Club Day game. Free admission to select games, children 8th grade and under. Holiday gift, Zamboni ride. I wish I was under 8th grade right now because I'd love that. But yeah, in all seriousness, this is, you see DePaul on the schedule after Xavier, and you're like, all right, DePaul and Chicago, that shouldn't be a hard one. As Xavier, how that game went. Georgetown's an easy game, but there's no easy games coming up for them pretty much the entire month of February.
Well, and let's not forget that Georgetown gave UConn a game at UConn earlier this season. Let's not forget about that. Like we're playing Georgetown roulette right now in the Big East. I think they're going to win one of these, and nobody wants it to stop on them.
Could you imagine if it was UConn, the reaction that Twitter would be? Would get?
Amazing. Amazing. It'd be fantastic. You mentioned DePaul in there. I think we need to talk about this DePaul Xavier game.
Great segue.
Yeah, and DePaul got Caleb Murphy back for the first time this season. He transferred from USF. He's a very athletic guard. He's not a very good shooter, but he's kind of to compare to another Big East player. I think there's similarities to like a Devin Carter in that he's athletic, he's bouncy, he's going to try to make plays, he's going to do a lot on defense, he's physical. I don't think he's as explosive an athlete as Devin Carter is, but he's in that same mold as a player, as a guy who's going to make more of an impact on defense than on offense. That's something this DePaul team badly needed with the way the defense has played this year, and they were able to hold Xavier, arguably the second best offense in the Big East, to 71, 72 points.
Yeah, which is crazy because I think Xavier's a top 10 offense in the country. So that's incredible. I mean, shout out to Paul. They're making I'm a Villanova guy, so they're making that loss to DePaul maybe not seem too bad. But yeah, I was higher on DePaul than most. I know you were pretty high on them as well. You had them as high as 8th in one of your power rankings, which I loved. This is the DePaul team that I wanted to see after I gave my New Year's resolution, stay healthy for Stubbs. I think Tony Stubblefield is a fantastic coach. Stay healthy for Stubbs is just exactly what that was. You get Caleb Murphy back. He plays 23 minutes in his Blue Demon debut, contributes 8 points. I mean, if they don't get those 8 points from Caleb Murphy, I don't know where they're getting those 8 points from. And I don't know the outcome of this game. So it's just little things like that are the tipping point of winning and losing games in this conference.
Yep, exactly. And Emoji Gibson, he had 22 points. He was electric. I mean, this guy, he's such a good 3-point shooter. I was looking back at some of my notes from the offseason. Emoji Gibson made more 3-pointers than any other player transferring into the Big East last season. He had 92 last year. He had the third highest 3-point shooting percentage of anybody coming into the Big East, only behind Baylor Shireman and Francisco Farabello, which that one has not panned out. This guy's a shooter. He's good at it. And it was a night where Xavier couldn't shoot the ball, and Moshe Gibson could. That was huge for them. The game high 22 points. Javen Johnson is also he gets tough buckets. Errol Penn, he was 1 point shy of a double there. But I want to talk about Deshaun Nelson.
Yeah.
Because he has quickly become probably the most fun player to watch on this whole DePaul team. He breaks rims. He plays with such tenacity. This whole DePaul team has suddenly become very, very enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, this DePaul team is awesome. I love it. I love their fan base on Twitter. I love everything about DePaul. I got a little trivia for you here, Matt.
Okay.
It was 3 years to the day that DePaul beat a top 10 opponent. Who was it?
Was it Butler?
It was Butler, number 5 Butler. Wow. See, this is why we have Matt at head of content at Road to the Garden. He just knows this stuff. He's not even looking at anything, just right off the top of his head. But yeah, I mean,
I know that for the wrong reasons, Tommy, because I was doing my uniform charting that I do, and I had somebody ask me about if DePaul was going to wear black uniforms at home, and they said, "Oh, the last time they did it was when they beat Butler in that game." So I was just looking at that game the other day.
That's amazing.
You thought you were going to get me.
I did. I've yet to get you. You're good. But if I told you before this game that Fremantle would get 18 and 12 and Nunji would get 16 and 13 rather, I mean, we all would have had the same agreement that Xavier probably would have won and probably would have won comfortably. But yeah, Deshaun Nelson is outstanding. I mean, he gave Eric Dixon all that he could ask for, one of the better bigs in the Big East when they played last week. And I mean, I don't think we can overstate the job that Stubblefield's doing right now.
No. And the whole season's not going to look great for DePaul. This team's not making the tournament without a run at the Garden like that. That's where they are. But they also had to play for, a month and a half without a center. That's where things got for this team. They had to make things work in other ways, and they just don't have the talent or the depth to make that happen. You're down 2 centers and Caleb Murphy. That's tough. Now Dornay is back. He's been playing better. He's been giving him good minutes. Deshaun Nelson has figured out his role in this team. Caleb Murphy's starting to get eased in. Hopefully we'll see Nick Ongenda back at some point. We don't really know the exact status of him. But all of a sudden, DePaul becomes a team that you can't have a bad night against. And Xavier had a bad night here. You look at the end of this game. Xavier had a chance to go ahead. They got two chances for a tip in. Could not make either one. It was just brutal. DePaul got the win. I'm not even sure if DePaul was the better team, but Xavier could not buy a bounce at all last night.
No. And DePaul, one of the things I picked up from when Villanova played DePaul is they're an outstanding free throw shooting team. For as good as Villanova is, DePaul's right up there with them. Top 12 in the country. They're number 12, obviously, but I mean, yeah, I'm looking through their KenPom page right now. KenPom only has them winning 2 games for the rest of the season, Georgetown and Butler at home. I'm going to take the over on that. I mean, they have a lot of games, tough games coming up, but I mean, we saw that they can hang with these teams, and free throw shooting at the end of games is what wins and loses those tight races. And I really like this DePaul team.
Yeah, and the only times that they've lost at home this year were to Texas A&M, a top 50 KenPom team, to Providence, a top 50 KenPom team, and to Seton Hall, now just barely a top 50 KenPom team. So look at, they still got to play St. John's at home. They still get Butler at home. They still get Georgetown on the road there, like you mentioned. Let's see what they do against some of these other teams. They may have another upset or two in the bag. And again, especially as this team comes together down the stretch, I think they'll play better. How much better, I'm not sure, but there's talent there. The flip side of this was Xavier's first Big East loss here. How concerned should Musketeer fans be right now that they just lost at DePaul?
Not concerned at all. Actually, I think that there might be a silver lining here in a loss. I mean, if Xavier goes undefeated, which was never going to happen, first of all, but Xavier goes undefeated, then they don't face that adversity. I think a little adversity is going to be good for this team. I mean, it's bringing football into it here, but it's what the Eagles needed when they lost to the Commanders. They were undefeated, like 13-0, something like that. But losing before you play a tough stretch of games is great for the brand. Great for the chemistry. Facing adversity is good. It's going to build this team. They're going to learn a lot more from a loss than they would have if they went down to DePaul and won by 30. So
Yeah.
I don't. My panic level is at like a 1 for Xavier right now.
I'm fully agreed. You'd want them to make some of those winning plays at the end of the game, but you play close games. Sometimes the bounces just don't go your way. It's concerning that they played down to DePaul a little bit, but yeah, it felt like it was DePaul's night. And sometimes that's what matters. It's college basketball. Like these teams, these are all good teams. Everybody's capable of beating anybody, especially with the way DePaul has looked this season. They can beat any team in the Big East if that team has a bad night. There's no sleepwalking here. And I think they took advantage of it. So we'll see how Xavier bounces back here. The Xavier schedule, they get Georgetown at home, but then their next 3 are at UConn, at Creighton, and then versus Providence. So they gotta bounce back in a hurry here, but I don't think there's a whole lot that Xavier has to do to change.
Nope, I completely agree. If I'd go as far to say, if I pick right now who I would take to cut down the Nets in the Big East tournament, I think I'd pick Xavier. I mean, their defense, I think, is what is their biggest question mark right now. But what Sule Boom has done for this team, the emergence, or I guess re-emergence of Zach Fremantle, and the steadiness you get with that anchor in the post and beyond the arc, really, with Jack Nungy. I love this Xavier team. I love Sean Miller. I'm not concerned that much.
Yeah, that's how I feel. We're talking about teams that could cut down the Nets for the Big East tournament. 2 others played last night who could very well be in that contention, and that's Providence and Marquette. And Marquette ended up taking this one. Golden Eagles built up a 14-point lead in the second half. They looked really good for most of it. Friars battled back, cut the deficit late, actually got it down to 5 in the final minutes. And then Devin Carter turns it over. Cam Jones gets the steal, goes down the other end, gets a shot. And that was basically the ball game right there. That turned it around with, I think, under 2 minutes left, under 3 minutes left. So Friars unable to pull off the comeback. Marquette's only losses in Big East play were in double overtime at Providence and at Xavier in a close one. If there's a team right now that has, if the team isn't Xavier, it has a chance to kind of claim that number 1 spot in the Big East at the moment, I think Marquette probably has the best odds.
Wow. That was not a sentence I was expecting to hear in January, but I mean, I think I have to agree with you a little bit there. I mean, Marquette's 13th in KenPom right now. They're absolutely worthy of cutting. You were talking about how the stars were out in this game, and there was 4 Marquette players in double figures. Cam Jones had 21. Tyler Kolek was 2 rebounds and 4 assists away, which 4 assists sounds like a lot. Not for Tyler Kolek. He's one of the best passers in the country, if not the best passer in the country. This Marquette team is solid from top to bottom. They have great point guard play. They have role players. Stevie Mitchell coming off the bench, giving excellent defense. Oso Iguodala. I mean, the list goes on and on. This Marquette team is built for that. And yeah, it's definitely another team that can contend for the regular season and Big East tournament championship.
Yeah. And Tyler Kolek is a guy too, who, I mean, he has found his scoring touch in some of these big games. He's been a pass first guard for a while now. He had 19 points last night against Providence. He had 25 at Xavier in the loss over the weekend. He had 29 at Providence when they met back in December. So he's got, especially against the Friars, apparently, he's got a scoring touch. He's been able to get points on them. And one of the things that stands out to me about Marquette, this team is number 1 in the country in 2-point field goal percentage. And that's like Oso Iguodala is not a guy who's going to be on like your center of the year list. Not right now. Maybe next year, maybe by the end of the season, we'll see what happens. But they're not doing that because there's dominant post play. They're doing that because their offensive sets are that good. These guys are so hard to defend, both on and off the dribble. Like it's everybody is so hard to defend on this team. That lineup is so tough. And when you defend everybody, and Cam Jones somehow gets open looks in the corner for three, and he's nailing them, and there's nothing you can do. They take advantage of the space so well on offense.
Yeah, and that's huge for a Shaka Smart coach team. I mean, he has that kind of patented havoc play style on defense, the fast, the switches, the press, everything that goes into that. They're the second ranked offense just in general in the country. Their defense is ranked 90th in defensive efficiency. I'm a little surprised by that, to be honest with you, and I don't think it's going to stay at 90. This Shaka Smart's proven he knows what he's doing, for lack of a better term, on the defensive end of the floor. The offense is surprising me a lot, is surprising a lot of people, but maybe it shouldn't when you see all the talent that they have.
Yeah, it's not like on talent. The paper isn't on paper. The talent is not like anything crazy. Like on paper, you could argue Villanova has more talent, but it's the way that they're using these guys and the way they've developed them. That year 1 to year 2 leap in Shaka Smart system is something he talked about back at Media Day, and you can see it all over this roster. Most of these guys were role players at best last year, and you could make an argument that all 5 starters should be on the All Big East first or second team with the way that they've played this season. It's remarkable the leap that they've taken. I don't like the defensive stats aren't necessarily there. I think part of that is a stylistic thing. Yeah. But last night against Providence, the defense locked them down for most of the game, really until the last quarter or so, and parts of the first 10 minutes of that game too, where the Friars did what they wanted to do. That defense is so impressive.
Yeah, and on the flip side, God, we can't talk tonight, can we?
No, it's not our night.
Not our night. Good grief. But yeah, on the flip side, talking about impressive, Bryce Hopkins, another impressive night, 19 points, 10 rebounds, double-double. And Ed Croswell, 21 points. I mean, talk about talent on a roster. Those two are about as stout as you can get in the front court.
Yeah, Croswell has quietly become one of the better centers in the Big East here with what he has done this season. He's had a remarkable improvement. The Friars also need it because the backup center right now, Clifton Moore, has been borderline unplayable at times here in the Big East. A lot of the success Marquette had on offense was targeting him in switches. Both Croswell and Moore, but Moore in particular had some real issues with switching on some of these Marquette guys. And Croswell has stepped up. I will note from the Providence Siders, this is back-to-back losses for the Friars at Creighton and then at Marquette. They've been without Jared Bynum for this stretch, who has, I believe, an abdominal injury. He is listed as day-to-day. In the Ed Cooley world, that could mean anything from he's going to play the next game to he's out for the rest of the season. You just don't know with college basketball injury reporting. We'll see him when we see him. Bryce Hopkins played through an ankle injury in this game and still put up the numbers that you mentioned, Tommy. He was really for large stretches, the only guy in offense who could do anything. And then basically the entire backcourt has been sick. You look going into the game against, I think it was St. John's or Creighton, the Creighton game last week or over the weekend. They had a couple guards who couldn't practice at all and were game time decisions. Alan Breed could not practice at all coming into last night's game. Jaden Pierre was still getting over stuff. So it's always hard to go against a team that can play as up tempo and can put as much stress on you as Marquette does when you can't even get on the floor to practice and get ready for some of these looks.
I misheard you there for a second when you said a lot of people were. I thought you meant like they're sick, they're literally ill.
Yeah, no, that's why I mentioned this in the UConn segment. This whole Friar team has been dealing with illness. There were rumors that it's COVID. I can't confirm that or anything, but the whole guard room is not in a great spot when it comes to health right now. Hopefully for the Friars that will change going forward. They got back-to-back games against DePaul and Butler coming up, both at home. So that should give them a little bit of wiggle room here to play with and nurse some of these guys back to health. But this offense needs Jared Bynum to work.
Yeah, I'm looking at the rest of their schedule right now. They got 3 very winnable games against DePaul, Butler, and Villanova coming up. I mean, 3 of their 4.
Can you say that last one again?
No, I will not. No. Nope. And then they have Xavier, which is always a tough one, especially on the road in Cintas Center. Then they have Georgetown. So, I mean, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 out of 5 games that they could really go streaking on. Get their guards healthy, get them gelling a little bit before they meet St. John's on the road on February 11th. Who, if if you don't have strong backcourt play, St. John's is not the team you want to see.
And St. John's already played the Friars close. It was a 3-point game at the AMP. They met last weekend, or a week and a half ago here. So, yeah, that's one. The Friars got to be healthy for that one. We'll see what happens. I'm not worried about this team yet. I think the Friars are absolutely still in the top tier of the Big East, which I would segment out as it's Marquette, Xavier, and Providence in the top tier, then UConn and Creighton, about a half tier below that, then Seton Hall, and then probably the rest of it. We're starting to get a little bit more separation now than we had at this point 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and out of the bottom tier, looking up, I think DePaul is closer to the Seton Hall purgatory than Villanova is right now.
Yeah, I just wanted to pull this out because this is I can't believe we're at this point. DePaul is 1-3 in quad 1. Villanova is 0-5. DePaul has no losses in quadrants 3 or 4. Villanova has 3 quad 3 losses at the moment. Both of these teams are 9-10 on the season. Both of them have the same Big East record here. I believe they're 3-5.
Yeah.
And DePaul has the head-to-head win over Villanova right now.
Wow.
Yeah. That's just that.
That's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
No.
The end of the Jay Wright era is here in a hurry.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
and the Tony Stubblefield era has only just begun.
Jay Wright walks, so Tony Stubblefield could fly at this point. But yeah, I'm looking at Villanova's schedule. They got at least 9 or 10 quad 1 wins left, and they got to get a couple of those. But back to Providence here for a sec, and I'm looking at the box score for the Marquette game, and the scoring was very top heavy. You had Devin Carter, Bryce Hopkins, and Ed Croswell, 18, 19, 20 points. And then it dropped off to 9 with Allen Breed. I think that they were really missing Jared Bynum in this game, who seems to be figuring it out a little bit. First team all conference in the preseason. Obviously wasn't the start he expected to have to the season, but the pieces were the shots were falling. The pieces are coming together. They really missed him in this game, and they don't see each other. Providence and Marquette, they're done playing each other this year, at least in the regular season. But yeah, I would have liked to. Yeah, I would have liked to see Jared Bynum in this one.
Yeah, he was difference maker. Noah Locke, who was the veteran who's supposed to step up for him there, he only had 5 points. He was 1 of 4 inside the arc, 1 of 7 from deep. And let me tell you, that was at least 5 or 6 of those 7 shots were wide open threes that he missed. He airballed one in there, and he's nearly a career 40% shooter from deep. He's one of the better shooters out there. He is not. That was not his night last night for Noah Locke. So rough night there for the Friars. Honestly, it's between Marquette and Providence. What I've learned is both of these teams are really good. They split the series. Both games were close. One game was closer than the other. And the one that was the bigger disparity involved a starter being out. So what I'm seeing is these teams are roughly about even when they play one another at full strength. And maybe a slight edge to Marquette there, but they're in the same tier. They're about as good. And I hope we get a neutral site meeting between the two of them. Let me tell you, a Big East championship between Providence and Marquette would be electric.
It would. There's 5 or 10 matchups in the Big East champion. I mean, it is wide open right now. Yep. Wide open. I mean, any team like DePaul. Bear with me here. DePaul could do what Georgetown did in 2021 as a 9 seed. How crazy is that to say? Right now, Marquette might be the 1 seed going into it, picked as the 9 seed in the preseason. Like, this year has been insane. And of course, you never want to count Villanova out either. They're like teams like that.
If Justin Moore does come back to play this season, then and Villanova gets healthy for the tournament, they can be as good as just about any team in there if Moore is the guy he's been.
Exactly. There's 10 teams that could win the Big East tournament this year, and that's
one that should be firing their coach any day now.
Yeah, they should be They shouldn't even be invited to the Big East tournament this year. They used to do that. They
They
used
used
to
to cut
not.
it off.
Yeah, yeah.
Must be there's no you must be this tall to ride sign for the Big East tournament anymore.
You must have one win in the last 2 years to attend.
They should implement that. If you don't get a conference win, you don't get invited to the tournament, regardless of anything. That would be really funny.
Get Val on the horn.
Val.
Val Ackerman.
And the refs. I also want to mention there have been some really odd technical fouls I've seen here in the Big East lately. The Friars actually gotten a technical in back-to-back games here. Ed Cooley got one at Creighton. Bryce Hopkins got one last night at Marquette, which Cooley was talking after the game, and he said, as far as he's aware from what Hopkins told him, and you can see it on the video too, all Bryce Hopkins said to the ref was, "Come on." Ball went out of bounds. He thought it went out of bounds off of Marquette. He clapped, said, "Come on," and got a technical for it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And this isn't the Providence specific thing. This has been all over the Big East this year. So Big East refs are out there, baby.
What happened in the Seton Hall? I was looking at that box score earlier when we were talking about that segment, and it said technical fouls, and it said a team technical foul. How did that happen?
I believe that's when it's on the coach. I think that one was on Shaheen Holloway.
Okay, that makes sense. I didn't know if it was like a bench violation or one of those like wonky rules like that.
No, that one was on Shaheen, as far as I'm aware. So
that would make sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, he's a heated coach too. So it happens. Technical fouls happen. Yeah. The technical foul should not happen for saying "come on" to the official. If that's the standard, then I think every Big East player is going to get a technical the rest of the way.
Yeah, probably some ejections too. That's a baby's head soft. That's terrible.
Yeah, obviously this is the coach saying it, so it's not an unbiased perspective. Bryce Hopkins may have said quite a bit more there that was not picked up, but you never know.
You never know.
Yeah. All right. Should we look ahead here?
Yeah, let's do it. Rapid fire almost.
All right. And just a note for the listeners, I think we're going to change up our schedule a little bit, and we're going to go Monday, Thursday with the shows instead of Sunday, Wednesday, because the Sunday, Wednesdays is rough for us right now. Monday, Thursday gives us a little bit more time to work things out and to space things out. So we're going to be previewing the games through Sunday. And there are no games next Monday. There are no games next Thursday. So this is perfect for us. We want to start with the Friday night game.
Yeah, Matt, you will be there, right?
I will be. That's my plan. Villanova at St. John's at MSG. St. John's at the Garden once again. These two teams played close last time. St. John's blowing a lead. These two teams played close the last time they were at the Garden, with St. John's blowing a lead. Neither of these teams feels like it's playing particularly great basketball at the moment, although St. John's just did get that win up at UConn. Feels like I don't know what to expect. I think it's going to be entertaining, but sloppy.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I was just talking with the guys at Villanova literally right before I came on the podcast, and one thing Eric Dixon said, somebody asked him about, St. John's coming off this win against UConn, how much is that going to fire them up? Their confidence has to be through the roof, right? And Eric Dixon said, not really. I mean, St. John's is always a confident group. They expected to beat UConn. They're expecting to beat Villanova. I think this game is, I think sloppy is a good word to put it. It wasn't sloppy the last time Villanova and St. John's met up. I think Villanova only had 10 turnovers in that game. Eric Dixon played 31 minutes. He had 0 turnovers in that game. I just looked that up like an hour ago. It's the only reason I have the stat off the top of my head. But, yeah. The last time that they met at the Finneran Pavilion, St. John's took an early lead, and Villanova kind of just turned a switch on, and that was it. From there, they made St. John's play their game, and St. John's is not going to win a game where they have to be methodical on offense. They are very much so a run and gun team, probably the most run and gun team in the country. If I had to look it up right now, it would probably back up my assertion. But yeah, sloppy may be a good word for this one. It's going to be entertaining for sure. There's going to be some fireworks in this one.
Yeah. Soriano had a rough outing last time these two teams met. Eric Dixon got the best of him. I want to see if he can return the favor here, because Soriano was in this Big East Player of the Year race. just statistically with the numbers he's putting up. But this is one of those games where you got to show it. You got to dominate against Dixon here. Excited to see Cam Whitmore in person for the first time. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'd be just excited to see what happens in this game. I'm going to pick St. John's because the Red Storm are at home right now, and I think they're playing slightly better basketball, but there's no outcome that would surprise me.
I'm in the same boat. I'm also going to take St. John's, and you took the words right out of my mouth. There's no outcome that would surprise me.
Yeah. We're going to jump ahead. Then that's 7 p.m. Eastern on FS1 Friday night. Let's go to Saturday afternoon here. It's back-to-back games here. First two on FS1. Both of these feature teams we have in that top tier in the conference going against some teams at the bottom right now. The noon game on FS1, Xavier hosts Georgetown. They're playing Georgetown roulette. Does the gun go off or does Xavier bounce back?
Oh, Xavier bounces back for sure. Xavier's offense against Georgetown's defense. Yeah, give me Xavier by tens of points.
What I thought when these two teams played the last time, it was closer than I think you would have expected. Xavier ended up winning at Georgetown by 13 points, scored 102, but they gave up 89 to Georgetown. It's a Georgetown team that seems to enjoy playing on the road more than playing at home anyway, with the lack of crowds that they get. I've kind of picked up on that. I think Georgetown can absolutely make this interesting. Xavier has played some games that are closer than they should be. They did against Seton Hall at home. They did against St. John's on the road. I think this is closer than people. I think Xavier wins and ends up covering, but it's a cover that happens later than people think.
Yeah, I mean, Georgetown has some bucket getters for sure. I mean, Primo Spears is the best player I've ever seen in terms of getting to the mid-range and pulling up. It doesn't matter who he pulls up on. That shot's going in. He's outstanding in that little mid-range pull-up game. And Brandon Murray, he's another bucket getter. I mean, Georgetown's offense is good. That's not their problem. It's the defense. And DePaul kind of kicked the hornet's nest a little bit. Now Georgetown's going to get a pissed off Xavier at home. I'm going to take them by like 15 to 20 points.
Yeah, I tend to agree. The next game, 2:00 on FS1, Providence hosts DePaul. Does DePaul's magic continue away from home here? They get the 3-game homestand where they picked up 2 wins. Are they able to go on the road and keep it going, or the Friars protect the amp?
I don't know. Now, you said Bynum was day-to-day, right? Which is coach's talk for I'm not telling you. Stop asking that question. So I don't know. I mean, Providence, that's 2 losses in a row. Not 2 bad losses, but 2 in a row. I think DePaul might smell blood in the water. They're coming in against a win against Xavier. That was a win that to the program, they say, okay, we can do this. We can compete with the top teams in the conference. They're going into it's a Saturday at the Amp. You know, the tall boys are going to be flowing. I do think Providence pulls this one out, but I think people are going to expect it to be close, and I think it will be close.
Yeah, I think it'll be – I don't know. The Friars already blew out DePaul this year, and that was on the road. This is a better DePaul team. I think they figured things out in the last couple of weeks. I still don't think it's close. I think the Friars bounce back here in a big way, and this might end up being a 20-point game. Well, we'll see. It's the game the Friars certainly can't lose after the last 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah. And then we have what I think is very suddenly the most interesting game of the weekend here. The late afternoon slot on CBS Sports, 4 p.m. Eastern, Marquette at Seton Hall. It's a Marquette team that is ranked and has been dominant at home. This is the number 2 offense in the country right now in efficiency against the Seton Hall team that has really tried to win here with defense. 2 very different styles in how they play. 2 teams that are very deep. I'm excited to see how this one plays out.
Yeah, and again, this is a game that earlier in the year I didn't think was going to be one that circled on my calendar, but this is going to be a great segue into my little Eagles pregame tailgate festivities on on Saturday afternoon. Excuse me. Good Lord. Yeah, I mean, we saw it. We saw a ranked team come into the Rock and struggle against this Seton Hall team. I think that we're going to see it again. And Marquette loves playing at home. They're a little shaky on the road. Am I a psycho? Am I about to pick Seton Hall over Marquette? I think I am. I think I am.
Seton Hall's playing good basketball. I'm going to stick with Marquette here as my pick, just because I think they're that good. And I think it'll be close. I think some of the matchup issues will cause some issues for Marquette that they haven't faced against some other opponents, but I think they'll find ways to weather the storm. And if this game is close, I like Shaheen Holloway. It's year one for him. Shaka Smart's very experienced. I have more confidence in Marquette being able to pull something out if this ends up being a close one, even though the Pirates are at home.
Yeah, I'm just tired of going chalk and picking the and picking the favored teams. I think if there was an upset in any of these games that we're previewing, it would be in this game. So let's get a little freaky. Let's pick Seton Hall on a Saturday.
I like that pick. It wouldn't. And the rest of these games we're talking about there's a lot of not great. That includes the Sunday too.
Yeah,
one game on Sunday. It's the national game on Fox. It's noon. It's Butler at UConn. This game was not close when they played the first time, even though I thought Butler actually played pretty well. And I see no reason to see. It's not going to be any different, right?
No. And for as much as UConn's struggling, Butler will. I don't know the status on Manny Bates, but if he doesn't play, UConn has Klingon and Sonogo, which would already be a tough matchup for Manny Bates. It already was a tough matchup for Manny Bates, and without him, I don't see this one being close.
Yeah, I tend to agree there. That's going to be our picks for the weekend. So we should be back Monday night. That's our plan.
Yeah, then we got the Psychos game of the week on Tuesday.
What's that? Oh, baby. DePaul at Georgetown. We'll have a nice preview for that one next week. So the rest of the schedule, we got Xavier at UConn Wednesday night too. So and Xavier at Creighton. We got some good games next week. So
It's gonna be a good week.
We'll be back Monday night to preview some of that stuff. That's gonna wrap it up for tonight's show. Thanks everybody for listening. Subscribe on YouTube if you like to see our pretty faces while we talk. Follow along on Twitter at Road to the Garden. That's the number 2. Subscribe wherever you're listening to this and Spotify to stick with us. And thanks everybody for watching and or listening. We'll see you on